Good afternoon, Mark Mathis, Clear Energy Alliance. You saw off the start of the presentation our video on Putin. That's what we do. We make short-run videos in this age of short attention spans. You've got to find a way to give people somewhat complex information in a short, tight, compelling a way, and this is the way that we do it. We produce all sorts of short-run videos on energy. We hope that all of you actually will check us out on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. One of the videos that we have forthcoming is one on foundation money. This is based on a study that was done at Northeastern University on 19 foundations that spent $557 million over 4 years, generally pushing the big three. This is what always gets pushed, that climate change is man-caused and that it's happening because of our use of fossil fuels, and that wind and solar are going to ride to the rescue. So this video will be about 4 minutes long in its final form. I don't have time for that now, but I'm going to show you the first minute and a half of it. Pay no attention to those foundations behind the curtain. Just believe in the great and powerful cause. That's right. There is a small number of wealthy activist groups behind the curtain that is commanding you to believe in the cause. And what is this cause? It is to save the planet from catastrophic man-caused climate change. Weirdly, you don't actually have to do anything. You just need to believe that fossil fuels are evil and renewables are going to save the day. Does this sound like a conspiracy theory? Don't be so sure. A new study published by Mathis of Northeastern University identifies 19 major foundations that spent more than $500 million over 4 years to teach you what to think about fossil fuels, wind and solar power, and the coming catastrophe of climate change. In the study, Nesbitt writes that foundations mobilize vast financial resources to alter the public conversation relative to complex problems like climate change. But the big money is only the beginning. As Nesbitt points out, the news media is in the habit of just accepting everything the great cause has to say. When left of center and progressive foundations are covered in the U.S. press, coverage tends to be predominantly positive and uncritical. Is the hair on the back of your neck standing up yet? So this sounds like a lot of money, and it is certainly $557 million, but as Mark in his fine book, Politically Incorrect Guide to Climate Change, has shown us, this is really just a relatively small drop in the bucket. According to the analysis in the book, the skeptics are being outspent on this 3,500 to 1. I mean, the numbers are astounding. $1 billion a day that the world is spending on this, and that number is probably low. Eco-activism, a $13 billion a year industry, and that's what it has become, a giant industry. The foundations have enormous amounts of money at their disposal that they use. And get this is from 2011. They've probably upgraded it from here. But you've got the United Nations saying that we need to spend 76 trillion, that's with a T, over 40 years in order to attack this problem. To put that in perspective, that's like the entire United States GDP of a single year, spending that once every decade in order to meet that number. It's pretty giant stuff, and it should scare us all. Speaking of scary things, you have no doubt seen or heard this woman's name spoken at several of the other panels. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's the nominee in New York's 14th district. She will be the representative there because it's not a competitive district. She has been justifiably chastised for all sorts of ignorant things that have come out of her mouth, unfortunately, mostly about economics, but unfortunately, she's making some pretty outrageous statements about environment and energy, and really we have not seen the pushback on that. She claims that we need a Green New Deal, and that we're going to need to move beyond oil in the fight against climate change. Of course, on our website, she doesn't state how this actually might happen, because there's nobody alive on the planet today who could actually tell you how that might happen. But she says it, so it must be true. And that we are going to be 100% renewable, or that we should be, by 2035. I mean, in 17 years, no oil, no gas, no coal. So, the loopiness of these kinds of statements is shocking, but the left, they're holding this woman up as some kind of visionary and a new icon. So that's disturbing enough. But we have other problems at play here. And so I'll tell you about a recent podcast with Ben Shapiro and Sam Harris. So you all know who Ben Shapiro is, one of the smartest guys on the right, maybe one of the best articulate, smartest guys on the planet today. Well, he has Sam Harris, who is a philosopher and a world-renowned neuroscientist. They didn't sit down and talk about energy, but they talked about it for a few minutes. And during their talk, Sam Harris said there are certain things that we want to incentivize, and one of them would be to get off of oil. Again, suggesting something that is impossible and just saying it as if this was a real possibility. And then Harris says we should recognize that the oil industry is already subsidized, so if you got those subsidies out, there would be a clearer competition with renewables. It's hard to know where to start on this kind of ignorance, okay? Because Sam, the great philosopher, imagines that all these subsidies are going to oil, gas, and coal, when he should understand, this is pretty basic knowledge, that the subsidies go to wind and solar, which would completely collapse without them. But more disturbing, the fact that he thinks that oil competes with renewables. The great philosopher doesn't understand that, no, we produce very little electricity with oil, and the two don't compete at all. So the disturbing part is that Shapiro, who is such a smart guy and a great debater, he didn't stop Harris. He didn't say, whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, explain that one to me, Sam. And that's frightening. Another guy on Shapiro's podcast, Eric Weinstein, director of Teal Capital, very important guy, spending a lot of money around the world. Once again, the non-fossil fuel mantra. Shapiro, in this case, didn't have a chance to push back on him, but it has become so pervasive as far as the narrative, the big three narrative, that it's inescapable. A couple months back, my assistant had an opportunity to go to the Young Women's Leadership Summit, and she had multiple conversations with young conservative women about what she does with energy. And to a person, they all believed the mantra that they'd been fed. Climate change is a very serious issue caused by our use of fossil fuels, and wind and solar are going to come riding to the rescue. They didn't have any knowledge to back these things up. They just believed. And some of them really weren't all that interested in being educated. This is a problem, a giant problem. I'll conclude by saying that I think that we've got a lot of people at this conference and in this room who've dedicated gigantic amounts of time, most of their lives in fact, fighting against misinformation and disinformation where energy and the environment is concerned. But one thing that I think we can and should do a much better job, which will make all of our jobs easier, is to have more influence on the influencers. The people who have the biggest audiences don't understand that this issue needs to be on the plate. That you can't just talk about, things that are very important to all of us, free markets and Second Amendment rights and abortion, all the big cultural issues of the day. We do care about these things. But energy has to be on the plate, because if it's not, if our energy system is compromised, none of those other things even matter. Things get ugly really, really fast. And so I would just encourage all of us who are in this battle to do everything we can to make connections to the people who have the big audiences, to let them know this is really, really important. It needs to be on your plate.
Thank you.